Hello and welcome to this presentation on taming the SharePoint chaos and how it relates to Copilot Studio. So, short agenda might take a bit longer today. First, I want to introduce you with the problem that I have. Then I show you the setup or configuration that I did. And then finally, we have a look at Copilot Studio. So let's get started. What is the problem? Well, a couple of days, a friend came to me and said, "Hey, I have lots of SharePoint document libraries. And there are a bunch of files there, and different people should have access to this, but not everyone should have access to the same file, and so on." So I try to replicate it here with this Obi-Wan Vader site. So I have here Vader, uh, and this guy, he should have only access to this document, a PDF document. And then we have here David or Obi-Wan, and this guy should have access to all the other documents, but not to this one. And of course, this is just one single document library. This should apply to everything on my SharePoint. Okay, and then I thought, hey, that's easy. So we can create a single Copilot, for everyone. So Obi-Wan gets his Copilot Studio agent, Vader gets its Copilot Studio agent, and then I go into this and select the files they should have access to. That's easy. But the problem is this takes long time. Just imagine you have 2,000 people and not only two. And if you create separate agents for everyone, then, well, this really takes a long of time. And the other thing is, even if you select the files like that, without further protection, the people can just go to SharePoint and open the files they should not have access to. So this is not going to work for me. And I thought about a second possibility. Second possibility was, hey, for everyone, create a single agent. And give them access to the complete SharePoint. That's what I did here. But I learned, hey, there is something called sensitivity label. And here's an example where I give David and the administrator access to a specific file. And by applying this, you can then control who has access. So as an example, here's a file. I say I use the sensitivity label for Obi-Wan with this protection. And I have other files where I only give Vader this protection and access. And this is what happens. So imagine I have here a sensitivity label, Obi-Wan, and Obi-Wan tries to open the file. Of course, this works. Now, if Vader tries to open the same file, he will get an error message that he has not access to this file. So that's a good way how to control this. But also it takes a long time, because if you have to go to every document and flag it manually, then, well, this really is not a choice, because it works with one single document library, but if you have too many people, too many files, then this might be a slow solution. But before we jump into my next solution, let's have a quick look at how I set up these sensitivity labels, because we will need it later on for my third solution. Okay, so I'm here in Microsoft Purview. I'm in the information protection section, and you can see that I created two separate sensitivity labels, one for Obi-Wan and one for Vader. And just imagine these are your departments, so HR, finance, whatever, where you want to restrict the access to. And how did I configure them? Well, very easy. If you have not done this, you can easily do it. You just need a name, a color, a description. Then you need to define what is the scope, where do you want to apply this, and then what is important is this control access. Why? Because then you can really protect the files and give access only to the people that you want to. So you say here assign permissions to users or groups. And I selected users, of course, because I have only a couple of them, but you should possibly select groups depending on your department areas and so on. And that's it. That's what you need. I did not set up something else. That content marking is optional. And then I did not apply an auto labeling policy yet, but we will need it later on. So that's what I want to share for the moment. Let's go back and have a look at my third solution option. So after this first short demo, let's have a look at the third solution that I thought about and that we will go through in the following. So first, we have the sensitivity labels that restrict access. Then we need a new SharePoint column that defines who can access these files. And I will show you in a minute how this works. Later on, we need then an automation tool how to fill the SharePoint column that I create. Of course, you can do it manually, but I was a bit lazy and created a flow. And then we will have a look at how this all works together and how it protects the data. So let's start and have a look at the setup BCND. And of course, we start here with the new SharePoint column. And what you need here is a column that applies to your site. So you see here my SharePoint, I go to site settings and I say, I need a new site column. You create this new site column, give it a name, give it a description. And in my case, I'd say, hey, just use a single line of text. That's it. And then, of course, once you created this column, you want to add it to your document libraries. And that's something you have to do. So you go to your document libraries, you say add from an existing site column, and then you select this column, and voila, it's there. So that's the first step that we need. And that's easily done. It's just a configuration. And then, of course, you need to fill this column. And because I said I was lazy, I created a Power Automate flow. I said, hey, based on a certain criteria, for example, in my case, I said, whenever the file has the term license for licensing or something related to licensing, then it should update this column that we created with a term for giving Vader access, or otherwise it should give OV1 access. So it was just something I created quickly, so that I do not have to fill it manually. But of course, you can do that manually or use other tools. And at the end of the day, what I wanted to achieve was filling this column, the manual one that we created, this site column, with these values that we needed. Why? Because this is then needed later on for the sensitivity labels. So I use these elements here to define automatically the sensitivity labels and apply it. Okay, so once you have done that, once you have filled at least one value in this new column, then you have to go to the schema and you will see that there's a new crawled property. So in my case, it says, hey, OB1 beta site column access. And notice in front, they put this OWS sign, and you need to enter at least a value. But then you have that. And that's the prerequisite for our next step. And what is our next step? Well, now it gets interesting because now we say we take this crawled property, the one that you saw, and this is automatically created for you, and we map it to an unused managed property. How are we doing that? So I'm going here to SharePoint Admin Center, to Features, Search. You will see that you can also navigate in a different way to that, but I was trying it this way. So I was going to the search schema, and now you see here's the crawl properties and here's the manage properties. It's just a different way to navigate there. And what I used is here an empty manage property. Why? Because we need to map this. I used just one of these empty ones, and then we added a mapping between the crawl property that came from our side, from the column that we created, with this managed property. So basically, you link this one with the one that we created before. That's it. Super easy. Then let's go on. And then, of course, if you change this search schema, then you have to re-index your document library. So you just click this button, wait a bit, confirm it, and that's it. And then what is the next step? Well, with this configuration, with this manage property, we can now apply auto labeling policies. So now we do not need to go everywhere into our document libraries and set the sensitivity labels kind of manually, but we can use auto labeling policies. How does it work? So in the auto labeling policies, and I will show you in a minute, you select the label to apply, and then you say, hey, I want to apply it to these locations. In my case, it's a SharePoint. huh? And once this is done, and that's the trick, then you can here define the document property and relate to this managed property. Remember, we said refinable string, and this one is the value. huh? And you say, hey, whenever you see this, then you apply this label, and then you just have to do nothing and wait. Of course, you have to turn it on, and the outcome will be that the files are then automatically assigned to their sensitivity labels. Let's have a look at how I configure that. Okay, so we are again here in Purview. We are still in the information protection area, but now we are in the auto labeling policies. And you see I created two for my two users. You would probably have some for your users or user groups or departments or whatever you have. Let's have a quick look into this policy. Again, you just give it a name. That's important. Then you say, hey, to which label does this apply? Uh, and then you have the option to apply to admin units. That's not what I did. Again, I say SharePoint, and I selected my SharePoint site. So you can click edit here and select the sites this should apply to. And this is the key here. So you have to create a new rule. And the rule that I used was an advanced rule. And then you can say, here is the document property. That's what I configured here. So let's have a look. So you say here, the document property relates to this managed property from SharePoint, refinable string 03, and then you have OB1. And that's it, basically. That's what you need for this auto labeling policy. And of course, when it says Vader here, you have a different flag. So let's have a quick look and also open that one. So we come here, edit policy. We just jump to next. So you see here they are the label, next, and here is the key. And the difference is here that you see the term Vader. And once you see that, then this sensitivity label is applied. So in my document library, whenever you see OB1, you apply this sensitivity label. When you find the term Vader, then you apply this sensitivity label. And remember, this column is automatically set by our Power Automate flow. So you do not have to do much. As long as you can define some criteria, who should have access to which document, then you can apply this. Okay, now let's go back to my PowerPoint because we are not finished yet. Okay, so after the second demo, now we are basically completed with the solution 3 configuration. So what is the outcome? That's what I already shared with you. So this column, you fill it either manually or if you are smart, you do it with a Power Automate flow. And then once that is done, the sensitivity label is automatically applied because of this auto labeling policy. It might take a couple of seconds until the label is visible, but it is not long. And then once you have that, you will see this outcome. So I'm here, OB1. If OB1 tries to open a document with the sensitivity label for Vader, of course, he will say, no chance, this is protected, you do not have access. If Vader tries to open a document from OB1, this guy also sees the same. So you cannot circumvent this kind of protection if you don't have access to. And then, of course, with these sensitivity labels, you know that Copilot Studio respects them. So let's have a quick look at how the different users experience this configuration. Okay, so I'm finally back in the Power Platform in Copilot Studio. On the left hand side, you can see Obi-Wan, and he is logged into this agent. On the right hand side, you see Vader, and Vader is also logged into this agent. And then I have already two questions prepared. The first question says, hey, what are the licensing options for Copilot Studio? And this information is contained in this file here. But remember, we have the Vader sensitivity label. So Obi-Wan does not have access. So what is the result? well, he gets the outcome, I'm sorry, I cannot help you with that. On the other side, if I ask the same question from Obi-Wan's perspective, he gets an answer. But you see, Vader's sensitivity level. That's the important thing. And the other thing is, I have a second question where I want to ask about this document here. And remember, here we have Obi-Wan sensitivity label. So if Obi-Wan asks, hey, what is about the chai tea promotion plan? He gets an answer. And again, you see here the sensitivity label. If Vader on the right-hand side asks the same, he says, hey, sorry, I cannot help you with that. So that's the difference that you see in the outcome when you have these sensitivity labels applied in an automatic manner. Okay, that's it what I want to share. Let's go back to my PowerPoint for some closing remarks. So after our final demo, here again are the steps that I executed for this last solution. There were a couple of setups needed in Purview with the sensitivity labels, but that's really easy. In SharePoint, you have to think about this site column and how you can configure this managed property, because that is needed when you talk about auto policing configurations. And here is the auto policy assignment rule. And remember, here is the manage property from SharePoint, and then here is the value that defines whether this label is set or not. So that's what I wanted to share with you. Again, thanks a lot for watching and listening. And as usual, if you have questions, reach out either by email or on my channel.